Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm one of the shipmates here at Patterns for Pirates. Today we're going to be sewing up the newest pattern, the modern sweater. This is a pattern that is full of options just like all of our others. There are different lengths, there are different bands, there are different necklines, there are different sleeves, there are color blocking options, and I can't wait to walk through the process with you. It is a very, very fast make, very gratifying make. You can make it with just about anything in your stash. So let's get started. I'm not usually one for a lot of excessive color blocking, so what I'm going to do is work up the sleeves just to show you how it's done, and then the bodice is going to be a solid. I'm using a really great quilted knit from Serge Fabrics today. I've got it in 3 colorways, and that's how I'm going to work up my color blocking. So the first step is to assemble your pieces if you're doing the color blocking. So you'll need to put your sleeves together, you'll need to put your bodice front, bodice back together. Since I'm only color blocking the sleeves, I'm going to build those out first. And what you'll do, you'll want to keep your pieces separate so you know which is the top, the middle, and the bottom. And this would be the top of my sleeve, this part up here. So you'll take one piece and take the next piece, this is the middle band, and you're going to line up the bottom edge of the top piece with the top edge of the bottom piece, right sides together. And there will be no question that these pieces fit together because they will be exactly the same length on that edge. Again, it's the bottom edge of the top band and the top edge of your next band. So what I'm going to do is serge these together, and then I'll tell you more about the next step. Okay, so I've got those 2 bands put together, and now I'm going to add my bottom band. Same process. You're going to take the top edge of your bottom band piece and align it with the bottom edge of the second band, which is, for me, the yellow. And you're just going to serge those together. So I'll show you how they fit. Right sides together. This is the edge that you will be serging. And again, there's no question that these are the ones that go together because they are the same size. So I'm going to serge that together really quick. And there's my sleeve. So this is exactly the same shape and the same length as if you'd gone with the solid pattern piece. You've got it ready to go, and so you can continue following the pattern instructions exactly as you would if you had completed pattern pieces. Because I have sewn these together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the seams down towards the cuff, and then I'm going to top stitch. And that's just going to help things lay a little nicer when you finally get your pieces all assembled. So if you'll see this piece, this is my other sleeve. It's already been pressed, and I went in and I top stitched. It's completely optional. I just think it gives it a little more finished look. But if you look at the difference between this one, which has not been pressed, and this one, which has been pressed and top stitched, you can see the difference. Now, also another tip, if you're using a thicker knit or quilted knit like this one, you'll want to increase the differential feed on your serger. That's going to prevent you from getting a super wavy seam that you just can't seem to straighten out. So I'm going to press the sleeve, get it top stitched, and I'll be right back. Top stitching is completely optional, but when I top stitch my pieces, I make sure to go back and press again just to relax those threads, and it just gives it a more even, less wavy appearance than if you take it directly from your machine and keep going. So again, if you're doing the color blocking option, you'll want to put together all of these pieces before you begin assembling your sweater. A lot of people do the color blocked bodice as well. I'm not doing that today, but if I did, then I'd want to go ahead and assemble the bodice pieces before moving on with the total pattern construction. But as it is now, I have my front and my back and both of my sleeves ready to go. So we're going to have some fun in putting this together. And I'm going to start with the bodice construction. So you will take your front bodice and your back bodice, and you will line up those shoulder edges, right sides together, and you're just going to run your seam down those edges. Super simple, and then you'll want to press. Okay, so I have my bodice assembled, and I'm going to quickly press the seam towards the back bodice. Okay, I've got those seams pressed, and what I also did, this is totally optional, I've also top stitched the seams. I find that when I sew with heavier knits, that it helps to have those seams with that top stitching secured just so that they lay a little more nicely. Totally optional. But again, if you decide to do that, put your top stitch in and then press it again so that those threads will relax and the seam will lay a little bit nicer. So the next step is our sleeves, and another reason this pattern is so fast to put together, you actually don't have to worry about wondering which is the front of your sleeve or the back of your sleeve. It's a mirror copy, a mirror image. So you don't have to worry too much about lining things up incorrectly. So I'm going to lay out my bodice and grab one of my sleeves. And with the right sides together, I'm going to pin these, and I'll show you how I do that. I use these Wonder Clips. They're fabulous, and they're really great for sewing with knits. Okay, so I have my first sleeve pinned. And I want to add to, in case you forget or can't find the information, Patterns for Pirates always include a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now I've got my sleeve pinned to my arm side, and you can see right sides together. There's the neck. So I'm just going to run a quick seam down this arm. So now I'm going to repeat on the other side. It comes together so fast when you don't have to go from machine to machine. You can do everything on your serger or your sewing machine if that's what you're using today. And now I have 2 sleeves. This is really going to be so cute. So this is also, I should add, this is the cropped length, and I'm going to be doing a turtleneck. You can see I'm wearing the turtleneck sweater now. My fabric is a very drapey sweater knit, so there's not a lot of structure to the turtleneck itself. With this particular fabric, there's a lot of structure, and so that turtleneck's going to stand up on its own. But I did want to point out that the cowl neck look is really not so much part of the pattern as it is the fabric that I'm using. So I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and press my seams, and I am also going to top stitch this seam, again, just because it's a preference of mine with this very thick fabric, and I will be right back. So now we're going to do our seam to close up the sleeves and the side of the sweater. To do this, you'll turn your garment inside out. And you're going to pin down the side, lining up the underarm seam, the end of the sleeve. And if you're color blocking, you'll want to line up your color blocked sections. Make sure you pin those exactly so you'll have everything looking professional when you get done. So I'm just going to pin. And you don't have to use this many clips. If you can get by with fewer, please do. Whatever works for you. But you can see now I've got that side clipped together, and I'm going to run my seam right down the edge with that 1/2 inch seam allowance. See how fast this is coming together? It's unbelievable. So there is our first side seam, and I'm just going to repeat it on the other side. So when I am sewing, I find it more efficient to sort of batch sew the similar pieces. So I have here my turtleneck, my waistband, and my cuffs. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and run those seams, since they're all similar pieces. I'm going to go ahead and run those seams before adding them to the garment itself. So for the cuffs, obviously, you want to turn and fold right sides together and just run your basic seam straight down that edge. Cuffs are done. In case you're curious, I do sew standing up. I have done so for a very long time. It just works for me. I find it more efficient. Now I'm going to sew the waistband together. And now my turtleneck. This is a fold over turtleneck, so it looks like it would be a lot of fabric to wear around your neck. This is going to be folded in half again. But for now, fold right sides together and sew down that seam. So now I have sewn all three elements, my neckband, my waistband, and my cuffs. So the next step will be to fold these in half and get them pressed, get that seam pressed flat. You'll fold them so that the wrong sides are together. The cuffs, the waistband, and the turtleneck you'll do, or crew neck, whichever neckline you're doing. You will fold them right sides together and go press your pieces. I'll do a little bit better job of folding than that. Then I'm going to go press these. Okay, well we have all of our circular pieces. We have our turtleneck. We have our waistband. And we have our cuffs. And when we get to the cuffs, you're going to understand why you really need something with high stretch. You're going to have to really stretch these cuffs to fit around the sleeves. Now in this particular make, I'm doing the regular sleeves, but these are the lantern sleeves here. See if you can get a full appreciation for how blousy they are, and they are a bit gathered on the cuff. And you get most of that gathering effect from the stretching of the cuff band. So just a couple of things before I find the quarter points of my pieces. When I do a neckband, I line the seam with the back of the shirt. That helps me at a really quick glance, because I don't put tags in my shirt, figure out the front from the back. So it's utilitarian, and I'll be doing that today. The seam of the turtleneck will be on the back of the neck. But when I do a band at the bottom of a shirt, I try to line it up with the side seam. That way it doesn't sort of stick out at the bottom. It's just what I do. You do what works well for you. But to me, this is more disguised than it would be if it was in the back. So that's what I'll be doing. I'm going to take each of these pieces and figure out the quarter points. We know that the seam is the back. You can clip it or you don't have to clip it. I'm going to clip it just for visual assistance today. If I can get it lined up. Someone cooperate with me now. So clip there. Then I'm going to run my fingers all the way to the other side to figure out where the opposite angle is. That's the halfway. Put a clip there. Then I'm going to take these two clips, put them together, and then figure out what's halfway between those and put clips there. And this is how I have always found my quarter points. I don't know if there's another way, but that gives me 4 points, 4 equidistant points on the neckband. So now I'm going to set that aside and find the quarter points on my bodice. So I have my bodice here, and I'm just going to fold the shoulder seams together, and that's going to help me identify the middle of the back and the middle of the front. And I'm just going to put a clip there. And there. So now I've got my halfway point in the front and the back. Now it'd be really great if those shoulder seams indicated your quarter points, but they don't. So you have to do what you did with the neckband and find the halfway point between these two clips. So hold the two clips together and just run your finger out, and you'll see it is just slightly in front of that shoulder seam. And repeat that for the other side. Should be in the same spot on the other side. That doesn't change much, or shouldn't. And then we're going to pin the neckband to the neckline. So for this, I've got my garment inside out. I'm going to insert the turtleneck into the shirt and work on it that way. I just find it a little easier than putting the bodice through the turtleneck and working on it that way. So turning the bodice inside out, working on lining up the turtleneck from inside of the neckline. So I have inserted my turtleneck, and I'm lining up the raw edges and clipping the quarter points together. So I'm simply lining those up. And when you sew this, you're going to have to stretch a bit just to make the neckband fit when you're sewing. So you want to use a stretchy fabric. And now I'm just going to run my serger seam around that edge, and then we'll have a neckband in place. And be sure to stretch as you go. Stretch that neckband as you go so that it fits the neckline. Don't stretch the neckline, stretch the neckband. Okay, let's see what we've got. We have a turtleneck. I'm not going to turn the rest of the bodice right side out, but you can see that with that gentle stretching to fit, it worked out perfectly. I'm not going to press this yet. I'm going to wait till I get my cuffs on, but when I do, I will be pressing the seam down towards the bodice. So let's do the waistband next. So the waistband is attached the exact same way we did the neckline. We find the quarter points, we line those up, and then stitch those raw edges together, right sides together. Okay, well, we're going to attach the cuffs now. So what I typically do is find the halfway point of the cuff. Seam is obviously the most easy to find as your starting point. And then I'm simply going to pull it in half to determine my halfway point on the other side. I just find that with cuffs, because they're so small, that it's easier just to find halfway points instead of quarter points, and I'll use those and line it up inside my sleeve. So pretty easy to find the halfway points here. I've got my seam, and then I've got the other side. So I'm just going to clip that, and then I'm going to take my cuff and insert it inside the sleeve, right sides together. And I'm just going to line up those clips with the halfway points, and get ready to sew. So as I sew, I'm going to be stretching that cuff to meet the arm opening, so the sleeve opening. And it should just stretch just to fit. You may have to pull a little harder than you usually do, like when you're working on a neckband, but it will work if your fabric has the right stretch. So here we go. We have one cuff. Now let's do the next one. And believe it or not, with that, we are done. Just needs a good pressing on those seams and pieces that we just attached. And I'll go do that real quick, but let's take a look. Fold that turtleneck down, and there is my sweater. I am so excited to try this on. I'm gonna press it and I'm gonna come back and show you how it fits. And here it is, and I could not be more excited about this. I do a lot of traveling, and this is gonna be perfect for some of our trips that we have planned during the colder weather. It's snuggly, it's warm, and it's just different enough. I absolutely love it. So I've got my color blocked sleeves that look, they just turned out beautifully. That extra top stitching makes all the difference in the world. You can see the band and all the good that the pressing did just to make the seams meld and those threads relax. So what will you make? I can't wait to see it. Join us in our Facebook group, Patterns for Pirates, and show us what you come up with. We love to see, we love to help. If you have any questions, you can ask us anything you need help on. I can't wait to see your modern sweater.